Welcome back, almost 14 after the hour, and today in Behind the Headlines, we're taking a look at the federal trial going down in Sacramento, California, where U.S. District Judge Kimberly J. Mueller is going to decide on whether or not the Schedule I designation for cannabis, marijuana, under federal law is constitutional. Now, this is a very, very unusual step. There's been many attempts by many lawyers to get a court to rule on Schedule I, and almost always this has gone down in flames. It's always been a situation where the government only has to prove that it followed its own guidelines as to whether or not marijuana is dangerous and whether or not it has a compelling reason to maintain its criminality. But this is the first time in decades that they've done a fact-finding hearing on the classification of marijuana. Now, keep in mind, Schedule I is the designation that says marijuana and any drug that's in Schedule I has no medically accepted use in the United States, cannot be used safely even under a physician's guidance, and is a dangerous drug that is likely to be abused. So it's the three-prong test for something to be in Schedule I, which includes drugs like heroin, ecstasy, and LSD. Now, clearly, with 23 states and the District of Columbia recognizing the medical use of marijuana, another 10 states recognizing, maybe it's 11, recognizing the medical use of cannabidiol, and the continuing path of legalization in America shows that we've changed a whole lot of our understanding about marijuana since 1970. And that is one of the points that is being made by one of the lawyers, the main lawyer in the case, Xenia K. Gilg. She's a member of the Normal Legal Committee, and she says that scientific understanding and public acceptance of marijuana have grown substantially since courts last examined the federal classification. Of course, we've passed legalization in Oregon and Alaska, in Colorado and Washington, and 23 states have medical marijuana. Gilg says, quote, "It just shows that this country has recognized that marijuana is less harmful than, I would say, alcohol, and the law prohibiting it is absurd, particularly as it related to being up there with heroin and LSD." End quote. Now, the case itself involves some growers who were with an illegal grow out on, I think it was federal land, and the defense here isn't so much that they weren't growing, but that the law itself that bans them from growing is unconstitutional. Now, legal scholars are saying this is kind of a long shot. This would, even if it did pass, even if we did get the judge to rule in our favor, it would only apply to those growers who had gotten busted, and then it would be appealed. If it's appealed, it's going to go to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. If it agrees, then it would just be unconstitutional in the western states that the Ninth Circuit covers. So it's an interesting path it will have to take. Now, the prosecutors tried to file a ton of motions to get this dismissed, this whole idea of deciding whether or not Schedule I is unconstitutional. They tried to get it dismissed. The judge rejected those claims, rejected those appeals. And the prosecutors are saying that, quote, "It is established that there is some dispute among doctors as to whether marijuana is medicine," end quote. This is like saying it's established there's some dispute among scientists as to whether global climate change is real. Yeah, maybe there's a few doctors out there that don't think it's medicine, but they are vastly, vastly outnumbered by the doctors who understand the medical benefits of cannabis. You only have to look at someone like Kathy Jordan getting relief from her seizures, or Charlotte Figi getting relief from her seizures, to understand that marijuana in its whole plant form even is very, very medicinal. Now, the hope here is that Judge Mueller is willing to take a stand. These judges are appointed for life. They're federal judges, and so they don't have the political pressures on them to have to run for re-election or to court donors. So it is possible that a judge who feels the evidence supports the decision could take a stand on this. I mean, we've had an Orange County judge is the one that declared California's death penalty unconstitutional. A federal judge also in California led to the demise of the ban on same-sex marriage, and that's happening all throughout the country. Now, during the hearing, witnesses that included people like Dr. Greg Carter and Dr. Carl Hart testified that marijuana has many medical benefits and less potential for harm than alcohol, tobacco, and many prescription drugs. It was also brought up that anti-marijuana laws were spurred by racism and are enforced disproportionately against African Americans. And another point that was made here had to do with let's see if I can find this part that I was just about to mention. Sorry about that. Scrolled down and I lost what I was talking about. But the federal judge here is also presented with the evidence that marijuana use is far less dangerous than alcohol and tobacco and even the other drugs that are currently sitting in Schedule 1. And when we understand that other drugs that are considered drugs of abuse, things like methamphetamine and cocaine, are in a lower schedule, they're sitting in Schedule 2, it just super highlights the point that marijuana is in the wrong schedule. I believe it should be removed from the schedules altogether. I think it should be out there with dandelions and oregano, for that matter. It shouldn't be on any federal schedules, but we'll have yet to see how Judge Kimberly Mueller will rule in this case. A decision